What's up, everybody? We are live. You are live. You are looking live. Charlie Marlow here talking about a crazy weekend of college football. Not just the games. Of course, the biggest news, James Franklin fired. You fired at Penn State. This dude, James Franklin, they get to the Final Four last year. Play, couple plays, whatever it is. They're playing Notre Dame from being in the college football playoff national championship game, and James Franklin fired. What's he getting? 49 million, 50 million, whatever the number is, whatever that buyout number is. James Franklin being told, see you later. See you, Jimmy. See you, James. Take your 50 schmil, whatever it is. We're going to move on without you. And that happened Sunday. Just a crazy story. Penn State losing to Northwestern. And when you see all the pictures and video of James Franklin hugging his players after the game, you just got to wonder if he knew it was coming. So when I saw the news Saturday, I was kind of shocked. Maybe I shouldn't have been, just for it to happen that fast. And I always wonder too, like, how are those calls made? If you're going to sign a check for $50 million, not all at once, but still, if you're going to pay a coach $50 million to leave, does the big oil tycoon booster call somebody up and go, hey, let's make the move. I'll pay half. It's a terrible accent. And also it's Pennsylvania. Probably don't have an accent. I don't know where the money comes from. Maybe tech, whatever it is. When I say tech, not Georgia Tech, I mean like tech, AI. Maybe it's AI money. Who knows? But James Franklin, 53 years young. He was at Penn State longer than I thought. Since 2014, a record of 104-45 with the Nittany Lions, 64-36 in the Big Ten. Remember, he was at Vanderbilt before that. Helped turn Vanderbilt into a top 25 team for 2 years. And look at Penn State the last 3 seasons. Finishing 5th in the polls last year, 13th the year before, 7th the year before that. As I'm looking at his Wikipedia, I see they finished ranked 7 of his years in the top 10, 5 of his years. But look, Penn State, they think they can do better. It's hard to argue with that. Penn State's a powerhouse. Is it fair to call it is it a blue blood? I mean, it's not Ohio State. It's not Alabama. Obviously, Joe Paterno took it to a different level. I think in the Big Ten, I know Michigan's kind of down this year, but Big Ten traditionally always Ohio State, Michigan. I always looked at Penn State just a tick below. Now you have Oregon in there. Whatever happens with USC. USC is not obviously where they were during the Pete Carroll era. I just wonder, though. I just wonder if Penn State is really that great of a job. It's a very, very good job. Don't get me wrong. I think it's one tick below a blue blood. And again, that's no disrespect whatsoever. Can they find a better coach to take them to the promised land? I feel like maybe they already know they can. Look, I saw that comment from Matt Rule. Matt Rule obviously coaches Nebraska. When you look at Matt Rule turning programs around, like look at his overall record in college football. It's not that great. He was bad in the NFL with Carolina, but his overall record in college is not that great because he's turned programs around, turned around Temple, and then left and went to Baylor, turned around Baylor, goes to the NFL, comes to Nebraska, in the process of turning Nebraska around. I believe Nebraska is 5-1. Yes, Nebraska right now, 5-1, ranked 25th in the AP poll. They are technically 27th. They're receiving votes in the coaches poll. But I bring that up because Matt Rule is a guy who went to Penn State. He was asked about it. He said, I love Penn State. Met his wife there. He didn't say no. He said he wants to build Nebraska up. He surely didn't say no, though. To me, that's probably your guy. You go after Matt Rule Does Matt Rule leave for his alma mater? I think he would. And I think people even at Nebraska, they'd be pissed about it. Nebraska, you're no longer a blue blood either. Maybe you could become one again, but you're not right now. I think even, look, I know college football fans are crazy. I think even if you're a reasonable person, you'd understand why Matt Rule would feel the calling to go to his alma mater, Penn State. There's probably very few jobs Matt Rule leaves Nebraska for. Penn State is most likely one of them. We'll see what happens there. James Franklin, you know all the numbers, could never win the big one. Terrible record versus top 5, top 10, top 25, whatever it is. I think I saw Ohio State. He was 1-10 versus Ohio State. And that's what I'm saying. I've never really looked at Penn State, and I'm an Ohio State fan. I think most people know that. But I never really looked at Penn State as a big game. And I don't mean that disrespectfully. A lot of those years, Penn State was ranked very high. Just as an Ohio State fan, you're judged by Michigan and national championships. That's just the way it is. Now, in some years, you have schools come in. Penn State's really good. I mean, look at Indiana. We're going to talk about Indiana. Obviously, the Big Ten is bigger now. You have Oregon and all that. We'll get to it. But I can't be really mad at Penn State. They probably said, look, we were number 2 in the country. We thought it was our year. They play a close game versus Oregon. But then they go and they lose 2 more. You lose against Northwestern. Is this the guy that can ever take us over the hump, over the mountaintop? And I think it's fair to say that after whatever it is, 11, 12 seasons, Penn State said, you know what, James, nothing personal. You're not the guy. We need someone else. You've taken us very far. You've taken us to the Final Four, top 10, whatever it is. We need to hire the guy that can take us to the college football playoff national championship game and win the national championship. So, yeah, Penn State, they were 3-0. They lose to Oregon in double OT. Think about that. 3 weeks ago, they're number 2, number 3 in the country, whatever it is. Oregon, double OT in front of 111,000 people. Then you lose at UCLA, 42-37. You lose to frickin' Northwestern at home. And see you later. Take your $50 million. Nice to know you. They got Iowa. They got Ohio State at Ohio State coming up here in a couple of 2-3 weeks. So there you go. Penn State, though, 3 losses. You're not going to make the college football playoff. The season is essentially over. Moving on to who you're going to hire as your head coach. Matt Rule, I think, is going to be the guy. Curt Cignetti, if you're Curt Cignetti, why would you leave Indiana at this point? And we'll talk about that. We'll talk about Curt Cignetti in Indiana, obviously, with the huge statement win over Oregon. Jeff Castle says, afternoon, Charlie. Good afternoon, Jeff. Thank you for watching the live stream. I appreciate you. And your other buddy watching right now. We're building this channel up, okay? We're building it up, podcasted on Kenny Wallace Media as well. Okay. I did watch a good amount of college football on Saturday. I made a video. I was joking. I hope people know I was joking because my kids had soccer. The 11 a.m. window, Central Time, was the window for me. Ohio State at Illinois, ranked versus ranked. Alabama at Mizzou. I live here in St. Louis. Ranked versus ranked. 11 a.m. window. But guess what? My son had soccer at 10:30. Ends at 11:15. Don't get home till 11:30. Then my daughter had a soccer game at 2 o'clock. So I had to leave the house at 1:30. That gave me a nice 2-hour window to watch kind of the second and third quarters of those games. I have to say, as a Buckeye fan, I was on that game. I never really felt like Ohio State was ever going to lose that game. So I was more locked into Mizzou and Alabama. Ohio State, they did what they do versus Illinois. Illinois kept it relatively close in terms of the spread, whatever the final score was. I don't even remember. Something like what was it, 34 to 16. Buckeyes, it was 34 to 16. I believe that was a 14.5 point spread. Ohio State looks like the class of the country again. They look really, really good. And also you're seeing some other teams falling off a bit, like in Oregon that you thought might be elite. What teams are actually elite? I think it's fair to say the Buckeyes, Miami. I never would have said Indiana until this weekend. You got to give them credit. And then, I mean, who in the SEC? A&M, Ole Miss, Alabama. We shall see. Texas Tech. I just saw Texas Tech. Did I read that right, that they're spending like $28 million on NIL? Texas Tech ranked 7th, 6-0 on the season. They're 8th in the coaches poll. So, okay. So, yeah, Ohio State. Look, and I like Illinois. A lot of Illinois fans here in St. Louis. Illinois is not a big game for Ohio State. Even when they're ranked like they were, I never thought Ohio State was going to lose that game. I was watching. It was like 10-zip, whatever the score was. Was it 20-3 at half? Something like that. I can't even remember. So I focused more on Alabama, Mizzou. I really wanted Mizzou to beat Alabama. This was just one of those years for Mizzou where it looked like everything was going great. You got a good team. You're at home. Maybe Bama's not as great as in years past. They obviously lost to Florida State earlier in the year. They've turned things around since then. And Mizzou played tough. They played them very, very tough. They lose by 3, so not embarrassing at all. I think Mizzou is deserving of whatever ranking they are, right around 15 or so. I know they dropped a little bit. Probably really shouldn't have dropped if you think about it. So Mizzou is 16 in the AP poll. They dropped 2 spots. Mizzou is 16 in the coaches poll. They dropped 2 spots. So they were 14th, which is fair. I guess if you're going to drop them, whatever. Not a huge deal. But you do lose by 3 points to the number 8 team in the country, Alabama, which is now the number 6 team. So Mizzou being around number 15 feels fair to me. So Mizzou, Eli Drinkwitz, by the way, this kind of gets us back to the coaching talk. Eli Drinkwitz and anybody else, a lot of other people in Eli Drinkwitz's tier of coaches. And that's a good tier to be in. Eli Drinkwitz, I'm saying he's not Ryan Day, he's not Kirby Smart, but he's below them a little bit, but still really, really good. Makes a lot of money at Mizzou. I believe it's $9 million. But all those dudes are going to get nice raises, or they're going to leave. I'm not saying Eli Drinkwitz is going to leave, but there's lots of openings. And when you have the coaching carousel and Penn State opens, and I mean, who else? There's so many openings. Going to probably be more openings with Florida. And then you just start to see coaches jumping here, coaches jumping there, and all of them are going to leverage those openings to a nice raise at their school, like Eli Drinkwitz at Mizzou, or they could go somewhere else. Who knows? But I think you're going to have a lot of interesting coaching movement. Let's see. Let me look this up real quick. How many college football coaches have been fired already? Have been fired this season. What do we got? I couldn't remember off the top of my head. So, okay. James Franklin, we mentioned that. Brett Pry, Virginia Tech. That's a damn good job. Mike Gundy, Oklahoma State. It's a damn good job. Sam Pittman, Arkansas. Damn good job. Trent Bray, Oregon State. Pretty good job. Deshaun Foster, UCLA. Dang good job. Has Billy Napier already been fired? Did I miss that? Am I dumb? Has he already been fired? This is going to give me no credibility. Okay. I'm seeing all these articles. Florida expected to fire head coach Billy Napier in the near future. I was like, did I miss that? This is where you can't really trust AI. That was the AI overview. So now I feel like I need to check all of those. But obviously Franklin, yes. Gundy, yes. Pittman. I don't know about Bray. This is where you can't trust AI. I didn't think Billy Napier had been fired yet, but that's probably coming. So just think about that. Those are some big-time openings. Some big-time openings. There's going to be a lot of coaching movement. A lot of coaching movement. Okay. I mean, game ball of the week, Curt Cignetti and Indiana. I always thought Indiana was kind of a paper tiger the last couple of years. Also, they play Ohio State, played them pretty close last year. Never thought they were going to beat Ohio State. Indiana is one of those teams where, and again, I'm saying this as an Ohio State fan. I looked this up. Ohio State hasn't lost to Indiana since 1988. We're pushing 40 years, 37 years, whatever that is. But that's my point. Indiana's a nice program, has had some nice seasons. You had 2020 COVID with Michael Penix. They're pretty dang good. And I just thought last year they were kind of a nice story, probably overrated in my opinion. And they get beat by Ohio State. They get beat by Notre Dame. Pretty good losses, though. I thought they were kind of similar this year, but dang. You go into Oregon. I think most people thought Oregon was one of the elite teams in the country. Maybe they still are. Look, Ohio State last year, they lost early to Oregon. They lost a bad loss to Michigan and still won the national championship. So I'm not gonna write off any team for one loss. I thought Oregon was legit, and Indiana went to their house and didn't just barely beat them. Beat them by 10 points. That was an absolute statement to everybody, to the college football world, that we, IU, we are for real. I know a lot of people were making fun of Curt Cignetti with Google Me and all that. Well, yeah, Google him. Google him. He wins everywhere he goes. Had a great season last year and made the statement. I think it's fair to say the statement so far. Now you can say Florida State, Alabama. But Indiana winning at Oregon, I think the statement certainly of the weekend and the statement of the season, in my opinion, although I can't really remember everything because I don't have the greatest memory. But it is what it is. Okay. A lot of talk. I like to kind of follow the college football narratives. Is there an SEC bias with the polls? Are some of these Big Ten schools not getting the love they deserve? You know, I'm kind of a Big Ten honk, but I try to be fair, right? And a lot of people are talking about Washington. I agree with that one. I did watch a lot of the Washington-Ohio State game. Washington's a dang good team. Washington is essentially 28th in the country in the AP poll. Same with the coaches poll. You got some Big Ten teams right at the end there. AP poll, you got Nebraska 25, then you got Illinois receiving votes, Michigan receiving votes, Washington receiving votes. And in the coaches poll, Illinois 25th, Michigan, Nebraska, Washington receiving votes. So the argument there from the Big Ten is you got all these teams that are whatever, 5-1, 4-2. Washington has a really good loss. Now, we don't like talking about that, but a good loss to Ohio State. So should those teams be ranked? Is there an SEC bias where if a Big Ten loses to a Big Ten team, you're like, oh, the league sucks. SEC loses to an SEC team, you're like, oh, it's such a hard-fought conference. I do think there's something to that. I do a little bit. More so now. I think for years, for about a decade there, the SEC was so good. It was hard to ignore that. The SEC was so good that, yeah, I think the wins and losses meant more in the SEC. You can still make the argument the SEC is probably deeper, I would think, than the Big Ten this year. We'll see at the end of the year. But I do think there is some of that where it seems like if a crap or a lower Big Ten team beats a better Big Ten team, it's always like, oh, the conference sucks. That happens in the SEC. It's like, oh, it's such a great conference, top to bottom. I do think there's some truth to that. I don't watch all these games, but just going through, let's look at the rankings. So like Texas beats Oklahoma. Texas is 4-2. I mean, is Texas better than Washington? Illinois? I mean, I think Texas would beat Illinois. I think Texas would beat Michigan. Washington's a fun team to watch and think about. So Vanderbilt, Mizzou. Again, Mizzou, it's hard to go against Mizzou when your one loss is a 3-point loss to Alabama. I think Mizzou deserves to be where they are. Vanderbilt 5-1. They lose at Alabama by 16 points. I think that's pretty fair. So I don't know if this year that narrative is accurate. Now, if you want to talk about some of these other teams, I'm not going to pretend like I watch Cincinnati, Utah, Memphis, South Florida, and all that. Washington's the one team I feel like is more legit than their ranking. And I say that also because I did see Washington in person, and they were impressive. They were impressive versus my Buckeyes. I appreciate everybody watching here. All three of you live and then podcasted later at Kenny Wallace Media. Want to tell you about my local sponsors. You see right there in the corner, Triad Bank. Triad Bank celebrating 20 years. 20 years as a bank. I went there last week, actually. It was what? Thursday, I believe. Thursday. They had their 20-year anniversary party. It was awesome. Outside, beautiful weather. They had a band. They had Salt and Smoke barbecue, brisket. If you know Salt and Smoke, and our guy Tom, it's top notch. Their brisket is unbelievable. They also had some, was it pulled? I think it was pulled chicken I had. Potato salad, mac and cheese was great. But Triad Bank, they had bean bags for the kids, playing cornhole. They had little basketballs for the kids. My kids were there running around having fun. It was a fantastic time. It's relationship-based banking. I have koozies. They gave out koozies, regular koozie cans, and the skinnier koozie cans for the seltzers. How smart is that? That's Triad Bank, okay? Relationship-based banking. Best thing I ever did for my rental property business, taking all my commercial loans from a big national bank that didn't care about me to a local bank in Triad Bank. Fantastic. Working with my guy, Matthew Tobin. Just opened up a new loan, bought a rental property this year, just closed one out. So we're always doing transactions with Triad Bank. I bet you we've done, I don't know. I mean, total, we've probably done 20 transactions if you count some jumbo kind of bulk loans there. I think we've probably done 20 different transactions with Triad Bank. They are top notch. I go to the Frontenac location. They also have one in Creve Coeur. Relationship-based banking, Triad Bank. You can't beat it. Also, you got St. Louis Equipment, St. Louis Lawn Care. St. Louis Lawn Care, been doing my lawn for 5-6 years. My guy, Tim Jankerson, they are fantastic. They do mulch. They will do your leaves. They'll come and clean out all your leaves and blow them and do all that. You can buy a leaf blower at St. Louis Equipment, stlmowerrepair.com. Buy a mower, get your mower repaired, small engine stuff. I have a Husqvarna blower I bought, a fuel mix there. I have the Crest battery-operated trimmer, even though they no longer carry the Crest products, but that's a fantastic machine. And you can buy your salt for the winter, bulk salt and all that. They have a new location in DeSoto in Jefferson County. St. Louis Lawn Care, St. Louis Equipment, my guy Tim Jankerson, stlawncare.com, stlmowerrepair.com, and of course, right there, Triad Bank. 23 minutes. I did watch a lot. For me, that's about 2 hours. I watched from about 11:30 to 1:30. And for me, that's pretty dang good. I got 2 kids. They got soccer. They got all the stuff. Ohio State, Illinois, Mizzou versus Bama. Some good stuff. Oregon goes down. Shout out Kurt Signetti. James Franklin gets 50 schmil to leave. Crazy weekend in college football. Love you all. Thanks for watching. Please comment, like, subscribe. If you're listening on podcast, give us that 5-star rating. It helps. We love you all. Let's end the stream. End stream. End stream.